Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. We have got so much to talk about today, so we are not going to beat around the bush too much. In case you missed the news, Game Informer has returned, so I was planning on devoting most of this episode to talking about that, since it was actually a pretty slow news week up until the other day. But then Nintendo decided to surprise us all and do a Nintendo Direct, so we're going to cover that news during the main segment. Joining me for all of that is my once again colleague, Game Informer Editor-in-Chief, Matt Miller. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm tired, Brian. I'm tired. It's been a busy week, but I'm good. We, as you said, it's you and I have been juggling lots of important projects this week, but all happy stuff around, celebrating coming back with Game Informer and relaunching the site and starting to get news and reviews and things like that back out there. So it's been exciting, but lots of irons in the fire, as they say.
Yes, it has been I've said it to a few PR people who have reached out because, we are both getting just avalanches of emails right now. So if you're a PR person who happens to be listening to this, apologies if I've not gotten back to you yet. But basically, this is one of the busiest weeks of my life. If you're watching the video version, excuse the mess in the background, because as I mentioned last episode, I moved at the start of this week. So I'm still in the process of getting everything squared away. Just so much stuff. Obviously, the relaunch of Game Informer, which is what we're going to start this episode talking about. So I'm also treading water and like barely struggling to keep my head like kind of above the water line. But Matt, as we've alluded to a couple times already in this very young episode, those who pay attention to gaming news sites were treated to some fun news on Tuesday. And basically, after a little bit of a tease that was posted on the Game Informer social media channels last week, this week we learned that Game Informer magazine, the outlet that you and I have worked for the better part of our professional careers, that it was shut down last August, and it is back now and under new ownership. And not only that, every single person, not only on editorial, but production, design, other behind the scenes, like office management type of roles, all of them are back and working. Everybody who was there and employed by the company at the time of closure. So, wow, what we knew it was coming for a little bit now, but can you talk to me a little bit about the timeline of events here?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, the today and the rest of this week has been the result of many months of preparation and conversations and things like that. It was shortly after the closure that we got contacted by the folks at Gunzilla Games. They had some interest in the various investment spaces that they were exploring related to video games, trying to find a way to enter into the media marketplace and find a place that they can make an impact there. And when Game Informer closed, I think there were folks there that were already fans of what we were doing. So that in a strange way, the timing sort of worked out really well, such that they were able to reach out to us. And I was really gratified that they started by speaking with me and by extension with the team that was part of Game Informer before things shut down, because it really communicated to me where the priorities were, that they understood that it was a company that was very much built around its people and the relationships that those people had with people across the industry. And it was only after kind of confirming the interest of the team and making sure that, at least on a broad scope level, that there would be interest in having us come back, that they then pursued acquiring the brand, which they then did, and getting us all back to work. So, we've been subsequently working for a little while, doing the things ahead of when we could be public this week with the relaunch of the website. That all by itself was a big monumental task to take the website that was no longer active and get it back up and running. But it's also one of the things that I am especially happy and proud of, because there was a loss there, not just for our team, but really for anybody who had been involved in creating that content over years and years of work, and even the people who, the interview subjects, the studios that had their games highlighted on various Game Informer articles, and the fact that we were able to bring back the website, and for people who sign up for a free account, we also have the magazine archive for the last decade plus, that's available to peruse for free, with an account. You can go in there and read whatever cover stories you want, any studio profiles we did, all our old best of the year coverage kind of things, going back to like 2012. I think the current archive is set to. So that in aggregate, between the magazine archive and the website, it made me really happy that we were able to kind of preserve that access, and let people once again see the history that's there.
Yeah, and I mean that was I kept saying to everyone after the closure, it was like, it hit me multiple ways because one, I don't have a job anymore. Two, I don't get to work with these people that I love working with anymore. And three, my favorite magazine to ever exist no longer exists. So it was like, not only is like your favorite TV show canceled and you never get to see like how things continue to progress in the story or whatever you're following, but also like you're unemployed. So it's so great to have all that stuff back. That does kind of raise the question that I know the answer to, but I guess magazine wise, are we talked about the website coming back. What is the kind of status of the print magazine for Game Informer?
Yeah, I mean, we made a conscious decision to sort of get the website out there, so that people could, access that content again, and we can reconnect with folks. And importantly, we need to be able to talk with, the industry, right? Like, a lot of our coverage is, of course, built on, relationships that we have with PR professionals, with game studios, with publishers, and that, there's some of that we can do even without being public, and sort of secretly touching base with people and saying like, this is happening. um, but but the broad scope outreach that needs to happen there, people need to know that we're here, so that we can start planning some of that, that larger scale exclusive coverage that is part of a magazine, a Game Informer magazine issue.
Mhm.
So so that's sort of what we're doing. But it is very clear to us that we are going to be bringing back the magazine, and that we want to have both a print version and some way to access that content that's part of the print magazine in a digital format. So, to do that, we're going to spend the next few weeks, even as we're starting to roll out actual content. And you already, when you go to GameInformer.com, there's new interviews and new previews and news coverage happening, including of the stuff we'll probably talk about here in a little bit later. Some of the Nintendo announcements that have happened here this week. And so we'll be doing that, but kind of off to the side. We are going to be doing a lot of work in the next few weeks to shape the nature of the membership and subscription program that we're going to have, so that we can then roll out those details with confidence, and know exactly how everything's going to be priced and what the membership perks are, and details about how the magazine's going to look and be and all that kind of thing. But I think in the broadest level of understanding, Game Informer is going to still be Game Informer, right? Like, we have every intent and understanding that, like, when we shut down, the thing that we were doing was actively, people were like mourning the loss of that thing. So it would be sort of foolish for us to come back and then try to do something like totally different.
Mhm.
That is not the intent. Um,
And I think that was a lot of people's greatest fear when like
mhm.
Game Informer posted out the teaser message. it was like, all right, hopefully this is something like good and it's not going to be like a weird like pseudo revitalization that's not going to be anything like it. It's just going to be kind of sloppily slapping the Game Informer name on something that is definitively not Game Informer.
Right.
So I think that was certainly something that we were very excited to kind of clear the air when we announced this week that like we are coming back in a way that is not only like hopefully going to be bigger and better than before, but also extremely familiar for all the people who loved our content prior to our closure.
Yeah, that's the hope. Like I think um, there's a recognition that, as there always has been, by the way, that the gaming industry and hobby is in a constant state of evolution, and we need to be as well. We always need to be thinking about like how do we best talk to the audience that's out there, um, and share the details about games and the people who make games, the people who play games that are most relevant and are really going to uh, help to enrich your hobby.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the guidepost that we're using, and I have pretty high confidence that we're moving in good directions there.
For sure. And I mean, I've been pretty clued into this and I worked with you a little bit during the like even the like we would sure like if this would happen, but we're not sure if it's going to happen months.
Hmm.
And I mean, I've been dying to talk about this for several
Yeah,
months
you
now.
and me both.
And man, does it feel good to finally come out and like have this discussion on the show and tell everybody on social media like uh, hitting send on that post and being able to like finally talk openly about this. It was almost cathartic about or
It did
cathartic.
have a
Geez.
cathartic quality. I agree. I I'm all, I think with the other big takeaway point, we have a in some of the intro posts and the video that got put together for our relaunch and that kind of thing. We talk about this, but I think for me, the other real big takeaway here that I'm especially happy about is that in our conversations with the folks at Gunzilla Games that made the acquisition, very much right from the beginning, there was, I was happy to hear from somebody who was like, wanted to work with us. But right away, my head went to the same place that maybe most of the audience would, which is like, well, if you've got, what's the deal with these new owners? Are they going to be telling you what to do and how to do the coverage and that kind of thing? And that was, of course, for me as well. Like the starting point was like, if that's what you want, you've come to the wrong people, right? Like that's not really what we do. We're not here to do marketing for whether your stuff or other things that you're wanting to highlight as an ownership group. So if that's your goal, we shouldn't do that. And it was interesting to me because that uh, I was all prepared to have to kind of like uh, make a case for that of like why that's important. And it became clear very rapidly that they were coming to us with that as the explicit goal of, as in like us remaining independent and us making all our own editorial decisions and choosing the games we want to cover, choosing how we want to cover it, all that kind of stuff. I think there was a thoughtfulness on their part, which I'm very grateful for, to understand that like they, as an investment entity, they were interested in uh, acquiring what Game Informer was, but they also knew that the thing that they were acquiring, if they tried to manhandle it, that would be a way to crash it, right? That would be a fundamental mistake. And so instead, they, by mutual agreement and insistence, right here from the beginning, it is, totally an independent entity that we've got this new sort of business called Game Informer Inc. that oversees Game Informer, and that's uh, that dynamic of us, our editorial group deciding what we do and what our covers should be, and where we put our energy and what reviews we choose and how we review those games. Like all of that is just us. Or else, quite frankly, I mean, I think Brian, you and I both know we wouldn't be sitting here. Like we
Mhm.
just wouldn't have done it otherwise. Um, but because it was that way, I think we were all able to feel good about coming back on board and trying to make this happen.
And yeah, and I think that I speak for the entire team when we say we're extremely grateful to this company for not only picking up the brand and hiring us all back, but also that editorial independence, uh, little kind of approach that they wanted to take with this.
Hmm.
Because I mean, there was a moment there, several months there, where I was like, is my video game like is my time as like a full time member of video games media completely done? Because like
Sure.
you look around the landscape of video games media, journalism, criticism, all that stuff, and it's shifting so rapidly and contracting in such a disheartening way,
Yeah.
as a lot of the games industry as a whole is contracting. But I think that
Yeah.
media is being hit particularly hard, and I was kind of
Yeah.
like, are is that just the end of my games media career? And because of that, I'm like super grateful for this company to come back and revitalize this brand.
Agreed. I think it's a for folks who follow along with industry stuff or the media landscape as a whole, the gaming media landscape. It's been a strange time, and mostly a hard time. And I think one of the things both you and I have heard as we've reconnected with folks, some of our contacts and relationships across the industry, is this sense of like, gosh, it's been a really long time since there's just been a piece of good news. Like
Yeah.
you're almost it's almost a sort of like, well, what's the catch, right? Like what's the bad side of this? And I mean, I don't know that in this case we, at least from my perspective, I don't know that we have that, right? Um, we're being realistic about there's big challenges that we have to face of how to speak to our audience, and we want to elicit feedback and hear from people about like what they're looking for and what is most exciting for them about games and how we can best be sort of an accompaniment to their gaming hobby. Um, but just in a general sense, like the fact that we're able to do what we're doing and that we can do it without interference from outside forces, including the folks that made the acquisition in the first place. It is sort of like, well, this is what I wanted it to be. I
Mhm.
don't have anything that is like I wish we could have had it be this way or something like that. We kind of got it to be the way that we wanted it to be, and because we got it to that place, that helped everybody feel good about signing on.
Yeah, and the thing that I think is most heartening to me, and as you said, like I'm under no illusion that there's not going to be great challenges ahead in like making this a sustainable business
Hmm.
and making sure that this magazine and website is successful in the way that it needs to be in the long term. But they have given us a lot of support, and they
Hmm.
have given us kind of like all the tools that we need to be successful. And and that's not even counting the stuff that's going to be happening in the future, which we're very hopeful about as well. And I think that that's a nice I guess breath of fresh air right now.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, top level, I think we're obviously really thrilled this week, and I'm happy that I have the chance to come and talk to your specific audience, Brian, that's focused in on the Nintendo stuff, which obviously Game Informer, that is one big corner of the stuff that we cover, in addition to lots of other companies and games and things like that. But it's very gratifying to me to have the chance to like finally be out here and talking about it and sharing what we've been up to.
It is very funny though, because I'm sure you've had this sensation as well whenever like we would go on a cover story trip and you wrote the cover story, and then like it's very hush hush until we announce on a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Central, or
Yeah,
whatever time we decide to announce, or 11 a.m. Central, I think we used to
yeah,
do.
yeah, sure.
And it was like so hush hush that when you're finally able to talk about it, you almost like stutter because you're like, oh, am I saying something I'm not supposed to say, because it's like so secretive up until the moment that it's not, and then everything's out on the table. That's
Yeah,
kind of how this feels.
it is. It's rare. I mean, there's an interesting dynamic at play for me personally because one of the guiding principles that you've heard me say this before, Brian, but like we are not game informer, which is to say like we want to uh, our focus is on the subjects of our coverage, the games, the people that we talk about. We try our best to be entertaining and interesting and educated people who are bringing that information, but our focus is on other things. So it's always a little strange for me to put too much of a focus on us as the subjects. Now that
Hmm.
said, in this instance, this past week, it's fundamentally that's what the thing is that like it is us, it is the company that we work for coming back, and it's sort of celebrating that to some degree, and that's oftentimes we're on the other side of that, right? Like because we work with so many partners who are like, okay, well, we're going to have your cover story for this game that hasn't been announced yet, and this is your moment, right? This is your, we came and did the story, and we're going to roll out that cover story, and it'll be a chance for you to finally talk about these things that have been under wraps for a long time. Um, and it's interesting to be on the other side of that in some ways.
Agreed. And yeah, we don't want to make a habit of kind of
No.
self-reporting too much, but we will have some news coming down the pipe, I'm sure, in the coming months, especially as we ramp back up towards making that magazine a physical, tactile thing you can hold in your hand rather than something that we're just waxing poetic about.
Hmm. Totally.
But in the meantime, Matt, we don't have a magazine that you can subscribe to, which will eventually be the best way that you can support Game Informer. But for the time being, folks listening who want to show some level of support to Game Informer as we start revving back up and getting fully back to what we were doing before we were shut down, what is the best way that they can do that?
I mean, the absolute best way, it's quite simple, is to be able, go to gameinformer.com and sign up for an account. I tend to think that like it's not too big of a favor we're asking there, in that like we've sort of set it up to be a, you do that and you get some pretty cool stuff in that, like most particularly access to the last that decade plus of old magazine issues, which I tend to think we put out some pretty good magazine issues over those years, right? There were a lot of great articles in there that are now that you can go check out and explore and enjoy at your leisure. Um, uh, by doing that, it helps us understand the scope of the interest in what we're doing. It helps us plan for the future a little bit, and so it's a big help. I mean, secondarily to that, re-engaging with the Game Informer as a website, with the content that we're putting out, as we start to roll out videos and streams and posts on social media and things like that. Refollowing those places and reconnecting on those places, if for totally reasonable, like there was every reason in the world for you to like unfollow. We weren't there anymore for a long time, but making, if you want to show support for the kind of thing that Game Informer does, reconnecting to those things helps us, because in turn that lets us um, again understand the scope of what we're doing, but also like just with the partners that we work with, we can cite that interest, and that helps in turn get better coverage and better exclusives and all that important stuff. Um, so there, of course, there will be a commercial component of the business. We're not going to send out a fancy magazine for free. That stuff will be on the way, and I hope that the offering that we're putting out there is something that, if you're a dedicated gaming hobbyist, that you'll look at what we're offering and be like, that's pretty cool. I am willing to spend some money to have that thing. But at least in the interim, it's mostly just like having there be people engaged with what we're doing is really really helpful.
For sure. And also, I did want to touch on that even though All Things Nintendo did start under the Game Informer umbrella back in 2021, I took it this week exactly last year. I took it independent, and that is where All Things Nintendo will continue to stay. But that said, having access through Game Informer will also improve the access that I get through all things Nintendo. So hopefully it's going to be kind of like a symbiotic relationship here.
Totally, totally.
So that I had several people reach out to me when this news broke about like, oh, what's the status of all things Nintendo? It's still going to be happening weekly. Nintendo has a lot of stuff on the horizon, as I'm sure people listening to this show are well aware. So you'll just be able to read my coverage of all things Nintendo, or God, my coverage of Nintendo on Game Informer, and then my talking about Nintendo on all things Nintendo. Still, all the places that you're currently listening to this. So Matt, I'm super excited for the future of Game Informer. It's so good to be back, and I appreciate all the work that you put in with this new parent company to make this happen. So thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, absolutely, man. It's a I'm could not be happier that we as a team can continue to do this stuff and have the kinds of conversations we're about to have about like some cool games that we think are worth knowing more about.
Yeah, that's always something that I've loved doing at Game Informer is just shining a light on games that maybe people haven't heard of, maybe people just don't know a whole lot about. Which it may have been the direct inspiration for the regular segment that I do at the end of most episodes called eShop Gem of the Week, where a guest brings their like a little known game that you can buy on the eShop and just like gives it a quick 5-minute shout out basically about just something that they want to give a little bit of shine to. We're not going to have one of those this week, but
There's a lot of stuff, other
there's
stuff going on, right?
so much to talk about this week,
Sure.
and we're going to get into that right now. But before we jump in to the Nintendo Direct news, I did have a few quick non-direct news stories that I wanted to touch on very briefly here. First up, Matt, we have 4 new Nintendo Switch Online games added to the SNES library. Nobunaga's Ambition, Lord of Darkness, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, Wall of Fire, and Uncharted Waters New Horizons. Uh, Matt, I'm going to flat out tell you, I have never played any of these.
I, I mean, top level takeaway there. I think that's probably true for most people, but I do think one of the things that's is worth highlighting here is Nintendo's continued commitment to like continuing to expand that library. I think that's laudable in many ways. There were a lot of cool titles, and I think almost everybody has those one or two things that were like they played back in the day that like maybe almost nobody else in your neighborhood had that game, but it was like your thing and you loved it, or you remember renting it from the video store and it was like, oh gosh, that game was so cool. And I think in the name of continuing to give people a chance to return to those old titles and understand them, even when it's stuff like what you just described, it's cool.
Yeah, I've talked about how like Pokemon and Final Fantasy X were the 2 RPGs that got me into the genre. So I, unfortunately, despite being a huge fan of the SNES during its day, and still to this day, I missed out on so many of these amazing SNES RPGs. So I didn't get to play any of these, but I bet people who have a deeper history of 90s strategy and role playing games probably have some pretty fond memories of these titles. But do you have a game out of this list that you've played,
Sure.
or no?
I think it's possible. I played one of the Nobunaga games. Like I used the example of like getting something from the video store. For young,
Mhm.
for maybe more recent gamers or younger gamers, that's probably like, what are you talking about? But that was totally a thing, right? Like you go to a local video store to rent a movie, but you'd also like rent. They'd have cartridges that you could like rent a game for a few days and bring it home. I think in the recesses of my mind, I can remember at some point being like, I wonder what this is, and grabbing one of those Nobunaga games and bringing it home.
The
But
name is definitely familiar to me.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But
I just don't think I ever played it.
if you were to try to quiz me on literally anything about it, I'd be like, I don't know, man. I don't.
Well, if you want to check it out in 2025, they are all available on Switch Online this week. And also, as we covered a few weeks ago, a reminder that Super Soccer is officially the first game to get pulled from Switch Online, and that happens today. So hopefully you check that game out if you wanted to. I found this next one over on NintendoLife.com. Twitter user Scrambled Faz spotted a domain registration by Atlas. So last year, you may recall, Matt, that we got Persona 3 Reload, which was a remake of Persona 3, pretty much in the style of Persona 5.
Sure.
And I loved that game a lot. Sadly, it has not come to Switch just yet. But as Scrambled Faz states in their post, 3 months prior to the reveal of Persona 3 Reload, Atlas registered the domain p3re.jp. That
Okay.
brings us to the news today. Atlas has registered p4re.jp, which seems to
Okay.
indicate that maybe we'll hear about a Persona 4 reload in the near future.
Okay.
Which, it's all speculation based on like the past events and the timelines and everything, but I think
Totally.
it sounds like a good enough case to bring it up here, and that we might want to keep our eyes out for an announcement in the coming months, which coincidentally, just under 3 months, Summer Game Fest is happening, so maybe we will see something then. And we know that a lot of the people working on either Persona or Metaphor have kind of been in between projects since last year. Metaphor came out at September of last year, and Persona 3 Reload came out, I want to say February or March of last year. So it would stand to reason that maybe they have something else that they have been churning on, but that would also be a pretty big project to kind of do in the interim there. But were you a Persona 4 fan?
Yeah, I like Persona 4.
Would
I
you
think that'd be.
did you play Golden or like vanilla?
I think I played the original, and yeah, I mean, I think just top level that it would be really cool to be able to return to those games. I think um, the profile of both that specific game series, as well as just the um, that particular variation or sort of subgenre
Mm-hmm.
of Japanese role playing game, that sort of style has continues to rise in popularity. And so I think it's great that they are, if that is indeed what's happening there, that they're continuing to um, find ways to resurface some of those great games.
And Persona 5 is always going to be my favorite Persona, I think, just, given how much I love that story, I love that cast. But Persona 4, I played P4G back when it was on the Vita, and I adored it to the point that I have it on my Switch now that they put out like the HD version of that game. And I was like debating, like, is that the game that I check out now? Like, it was after Metaphor, I was looking for something new to play, and I was like, that might be a little too close to like the gameplay style of Metaphor, which I put like 115 hours into. But I think if they announce it and it comes out like later this year or maybe early next year, that would be enough space for me to go back to one of these types of games, because man, they're long. But I really love Persona 4, so hopefully that is what they're doing. It would certainly indicate, if this registration is authentic, that would be the next step for that series. So something to keep an eye out for in the coming months. We got another quick story from the corner of Sega and Atlas. Sonic Team has released an official Sonic timeline for the first time that I can recall, and it's certainly the first time in a long time if they did it before. And it goes all the way back to the destruction and resurrection of Earth at the hands of Dark Gaia and Light Gaia, and then covers events like from games like Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Adventure, Shadow the Hedgehog, and most of the other games. They've even come out and said it's not completely comprehensive, but if you're a Sonic fan, it is kind of fun to see it all laid out. But it does get a tiny bit confusing when you get to the part of Sonic '06, because literally at the end of the game, the events of that game are erased from history, and it acknowledges as such. Like, it tells like, oh, here's what happened in this game, and at the end it says the events of this game have been erased from history, and I'm like, all right, well then that, I don't know if that really counts as a part of a timeline. But another weird thing is it includes Sonic Shuffle as canon, which is the terrible Mario Party clone from the Dreamcast era. But even so, I don't think it's quite as confusing as the Zelda timeline. which has multiple splits and all that nonsense. But this has been a bigger effort from Sonic Team to kind of develop games with a cohesive timeline and lore in mind, and we saw that
Sure.
very glaringly in Sonic Frontiers, which had references, sometimes very heavy-handed references to past games. But also they rewrote some of the cutscenes in Sonic X Shadow Generations when that came out last year to kind of like include like little nods to past games, which is a neat thing to do, I guess. Matt, I know you are a big lore guy when it comes to series like Assassin's Creed, Halo, Destiny. I remember when you were playing through Bloodborne, you were diving pretty deep into that lore.
Sure.
Acknowledging the fact that you are not the biggest Sonic the Hedgehog fan on the
Uh,
planet, does this do anything for you?
it doesn't. In all fairness, it probably doesn't do much for me. But I think it's worth calling out the fact that like that kind of attention to recognizing that fans are curious about that stuff. If you are a big Sonic fan, I can see as you are, Brian. Like, I can see why that would be cool, right? Like, um, it's fun to guess at that kind of stuff and to try to fit things into a your own head canon about the way that everything fits together. Um, but it's pretty cool when they go to the effort to circle back to their own projects over the decades, in this case, decades of work, and try to say like, okay, well, this actually we're going to try to. I mean, there's a little bit of a retcon quality to it, right? I tend to think that the people who were making Sonic games in the late '90s were not super concerned with like where those games fit within a timeline.
Well,
But
the Zelda team is all like told me directly, like, oh, we don't really think about the timeline until after we're
yeah,
done.
yeah, I can believe that. But even so, it just adds to a layer of excitement, I think, for folks. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, and it's exciting to see like a greater care being put forth with like where how stories fit together, and I don't know, it's just a fun thing, especially as like the movie universe continues to be successful. I think that was maybe a little bit of an awakening for the team of like, oh, people actually do care about the story of these games, which I would say I cared about the story dating back to Sonic 3 and Knuckles when they had like stage transitions that kind of told you why they're going to this stage next. That was always something that I thoroughly enjoyed, but that was back in 1994, and it's good to see Sonic Team finally kind of come to that point that I was at 3 decades ago.
Sure.
But Matt, we talked about Assassin's Creed a little bit and your love of the lore of that franchise, and I have expressed my concern in past episodes about the health of Ubisoft.
Okay.
And I know that Ubisoft is a publisher that you enjoy quite a bit of their games, particularly the Assassin's Creed franchise. And I'm a
Sure.
big fan of AC. I'm a big fan of Far Cry, several other games. I like the Mario plus Rabbids games. But they've had some struggles as of late, and there's been some concerns that even though they fended off like that hostile takeover about 10 years ago from I think it was Viacom, it seemed like there was a good chance that they were going to have this kind of taken out of their hands. The stock was plummeting, and it seemed like may have been some hostile takeover ideas happening. But it now seems, this is kind of a breaking news story, Ubisoft might have found a solution to keep the company afloat and keep it so that the Guillemot family is still in charge. So during an earnings call today, Ubisoft announced that it is receiving a $1.25 billion investment from Tencent, and the deal will allow the Guillemot family to stay in control at Ubisoft, but it will be spinning off with a subsidiary company that will be in charge of Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six Siege.
Hmm.
And the subsidiary, as of this recording, doesn't have a name yet, but it's going to be headquartered in Paris, according to a report from Stephen Totillo, and it will have a separate board in charge of it. And for this subsidiary in particular, Tencent will be a minority stakeholder. And we don't know exactly how this will play out or work in actuality, but series like The Division, Ghost Recon, Prince of Persia, and Rayman will all remain under the main Ubisoft umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So we've both worked with Ubisoft quite a bit. You, I believe, have done like multiple cover stories with Ubisoft. We have great relationship with many of the folks who work at that company. What does this news say to you about like kind of the future of this company?
Um, I think anytime you have these kinds of breaking news stories, um, there's a danger in trying to draw too many conclusions at an early juncture, about what it means and whether it's a good thing or not, because you got to spend a lot of time looking at, like, okay, what are the specifics of what that means? When somebody talks about, like, oh, a minority stake, what does that mean in terms of creative decision making, or in terms of what projects get greenlit and things like that? um, I think for me, the takeaway with anything like that um, is less a specific insight into what's going on with Ubisoft, and more um, a broader takeaway about what's going on in the industry right now, in the gaming industry, which is that,
Mhm.
like, it is a complicated moment for gaming um, to manage across the board. There is no company. This is not an exclusive dilemma for Ubisoft. There's no company that is working on games right now that is not trying to, like, chart a very, very complicated path into the future. Um, Interestingly, I think I think it's pretty clear that that is not because of a lack of interest in games. The popularity of games as a hobby and as a pop cultural phenomenon and a thing that people engage with, I think, is still very much present. Like, it's still there. It's that, like, doing the business now is really expensive. It's really, really, really expensive to do it. Risks are hard to take, and
Mhm.
yet, if you don't take any risks, your business goes stale, right? And so that is this, like, incredible challenge that everybody out there working in the field is having to confront. And so this kind of a news story coming out from Ubisoft is, at first blush, really is just a reinforcement of that for me. That, like, everybody's trying to figure out a path forward, and um, beyond that, it's really about, like, watching and waiting and seeing how the chips fall.
For sure. And I mean, they have so many big franchises under their belt that like it's sad to see them struggling, but like at the same time it does seem like they are exploring creative ways to stay afloat. Like I'm sure that you are enjoying Assassin's Creed Shadows as much as I am, but I believe it was the Kotaku report that I was reading from that was like pointing out that they did have a couple of games that were big franchises, most notably from Avatar and Star Wars, that despite getting pretty good reception from critics, just flat out underperformed in the sales department. And it's been a little while since we've had a big Assassin's Creed game. Far Cry has kind of been on ice for a little bit, so I mean, it's understandable why they would be having like a kind of a difficult stretch here. So it is good that there is a company that came in and kind of gave them a little bit of a life raft. Hopefully, it doesn't interfere with any of their business models that they want to pursue or anything like that. But like you said, it's so early in this reporting and this news cycle that it's hard to draw any real conclusions
Yeah, yeah,
aside from like hopefully this gives them the kind of the life raft that they need to continue to make the games and find financial success.
yeah, for sure. I think for me, that make drawing that conclusion, like, this is a good thing or is it or a bad thing, would be conjecture on my part, right? Like, I don't have enough of detail. I don't think any of us do yet to totally get that picture, but I do think that it's illustrative of kind of what's going on. To your earlier point, by the way, I think I I take every opportunity I can to try to surface this just to anybody who would care to listen, which is that, like, I think there is sometimes a mistake that's being made now when we talk about like, you are absolutely right. There are games, like big games, that could be described as having underperformed from Ubisoft, or I think there's a lot of games like that you could point to and say that about. again, a lot of that circles back to expectations that are meant to match up with like the expenses that are involved with creating a game now.
Hmm.
They have elevated what one needs to do to a space where often it is almost impossible to to appropriately perform or overperform in how the thing is going to come out. It has to be this like smash hit that is a bigger game than anything that's ever come out before in the genre sometimes before it can be considered a success. Simply because it costs so much money to do, right? And
Yeah.
I do sometimes think, like when I see conversations on this topic as they float around on the internet, there's this jump to criticize, or this eagerness to take something to task for not being up to snuff. Something, to use your examples, Avatar or Star Wars Outlaws or something like that. Even a few years ago, the way those games performed or whatever uh, might have been just fine. I mean, I don't know the specifics of the financial details, right? But like the 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 yard marker has shifted, so to speak, of like what something needs to do. And I think there's sometimes a mistake. Just those of us who are um, we enjoy the hobby, we enjoy the games, right? To get too wrapped up in the financials of like, oh, it performed well or it didn't perform well enough or whatever, um, instead of just sort of understanding like, oh, this was like a really big game that did some interesting things and is worth checking out.
Hmm. And I mean, hey, I didn't check out Avatar, but I was one of the people who got to fly out to Malmo to visit Massive and uh, write the cover story of Star Wars Outlaws. And then when
Mhm.
I played it when it came out, like I enjoyed it a lot when I played it while I was there. And they
Sure.
even tweaked things after that. And I got to fly out to LA to check it out again when it was right before launch. That was, I think, my final preview that I wrote for Game Informer before the outlet was shut down.
Sure.
Uh, but I enjoyed what I played quite a bit of Star
Yeah.
Wars Outlaws. Like I had a really great time with it. I've made a joke in the past because like I feel like every time Square Enix puts out a game, inevitably like a month or two later, the headlines are Square Enix says game underperformed.
Yes.
And it's like I posted it one time where it was like a bunch of headlines. It was like uh Tomb Raider underperforms, Final Fantasy 16 underperforms, and I like all these different games, and I was just like, I think Square Enix might have a forecasting problem, not a sales problem.
Yeah. It, uh, it's. I think the takeaway message for me is very much like uh, it's important not to take things always at face value as on that subject, right? Like of like how good something is, or um, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Sure thing. Well, I would normally take a break right here, but Matt, in the name of timeliness, we are going to keep it rolling. We're going to jump right into the Nintendo Direct news. We knew that we were going to be getting a Nintendo Direct next week, but I did not expect to have back-to-back weeks with Nintendo.
Mhm.
So, all things Nintendo listeners, you are going to get lots of great content over the next two episodes. Next week's is going to be focused squarely on Nintendo Switch 2 and presumably all of the games that they're going to talk about there. And this week's Nintendo Direct was focused more on Switch 1. So here's my proposal, Matt. In the name of getting through this, I'm gonna just go down the list, and if there's anything you want to talk about in particular or anything we should spend a little bit more time on, we'll pause briefly. But this is primarily going to be us just kind of quick hitting some of these because some of them are pretty self-explanatory announcements.
Sure.
We got a new trailer for to kick things off with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake. I don't know if you played Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake, but it wasn't really my cup of tea, but I did appreciate what it was doing. I wish that we would get some of the older Final Fantasy games in this way. That's kind of my holy grail for this HD 2D style. We got Live Alive, or Live Alive, whatever it's supposed to be called. We got Dragon Quest 3, and now we're getting Dragon Quest 1 and 2. But we just got to see a little bit of new footage of this. It's after the success. This was actually one where Square Enix was like, this overperformed, which I was I was very happy to see. After I think they did say Final Fantasy VII Rebirth underperformed, but we got a 2025 release date, which I think we already knew about. But it's just kind of a good way to kick off the direct. So after that, we got a few games that I am not particularly familiar with, but No Sleep for Kaname Date from the Somnium Files. So you play as
Say
Kamnia.
that 5 times fast,
I
Brian.
know I'm struggling here. Kaname Date is, I believe, a detective with an AI that is implanted into I think it's his left eye, and you're tracking down a missing pop star idol who is trapped in it. I believe it's an escape game, and you need to investigate the environment and find clues, solve puzzles, and uncover the mystery and rescue this woman. Her name is Iris, and that is coming out July 25th. Then we got Raido Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army. And this is an Atlas RPG from 2006, speaking of Persona games. And you play as a detective, another detective game named Raido, Kuzunoha, who can fight alongside demons as a devil summoner, which, if you've played Persona, Metaphor, or Shin Megami Tensei, you're familiar with that term. And you can solve supernatural cases and summon demons to fight in real-time battles. And if you've played Persona or SMT, you will absolutely recognize some of the demons that you can summon. They showed Jack Frost, who, is appeared in basically every Persona and SMT game ever. And so this version has improved graphics and gameplay and comes out June 19th. Here's one that I have been waiting for more news on. It was Shadow Labyrinth. It is a dark Metroidvania that is based on Pac-Man. Matt, I don't know if you watched the Secret Level series on Amazon, but they had the Pac-Man episode, and I saw this at a premiere out in LA, and I was just like, what the heck did I just watch? And then literally the next day was the Game Awards, and they announced this game, Shadow Labyrinth, and suddenly it made a whole lot more sense why the
Sure.
game or Pac-Man episode looked like this. So it's a Metroidvania. You can phase shift and fuse with Puck, who is the Pac-Man shaped like kind of drone that accompanies you on your journey. And then you can also traverse areas you couldn't otherwise with Puck. Like it looked like there were some of like the power pellets like in Pac-Man that were like up
Mm-hmm.
on a wall, and you fuse with Puck, and then he can chomp his way up the wall. Kind of a cool traversal idea to like use like the Pac-Man convention. And then here's where things go even more off the wall. You can fuse with Puck and transform into the Gaia form, which is a completely different form. Like it looks like kind of like a mythical creature, and you have enhanced battling capabilities. And then when you defeat your enemies in true Pac-Man fashion, you can consume them and collect resources that can be used for upgrades. I mean, I guess that part's not for true Pac-Man fashion, but this game looks bizarre. It looks extreme. It reminds me of a game that would have come out on Xbox 360, and I don't mean that in like an insulting way, but like remember, like we got like Bomberman Zero or whatever, or like Bionic Commando, where it's like these dark, gritty reboots of these franchises trying to bring them into like a new generation. It feels like that, but 20 years later.
It's a strange one. I would say that. Obviously, um, there was a moment in time that it would be that it was very very hard to overstate the cultural significance of Pac-Man, right? And as a result, I get why there would be a desire to like we gotta keep going back to that well. We gotta find some new angles. Like this is a property that we want to do something with. This one, as compared to things that feel novel, something like Championship Edition, like those games were really really good. Um, this feels significantly further from base just as a starting point to say like okay you're really stretching my Pac-Man enthusiasm a little bit to try to get it to a new place. Now that said, proof is in the pudding, right? Like if it's a good Metroid style game, Um, I don't really care if it's Pac-Man or not. Then that'll be great.
I'm
So
I'm
we'll
trying to
see.
find more information about the team that's making this game. All it says is Bandai Namco Studios, which could mean anything. But I did find that Katsuhiro Harada, who is the guy who's like kind of like the guy at the helm of the Tekken franchise, is working on it. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of information about the rest of the team.
I mean, I will say this: if the health items are not fruit and pretzels, they've they have done something wrong.
This is one of those games where I am like, oh, so we have the producer Saigo Aizawa,
Okay.
and I guess this is part of a 45th anniversary celebration. But
Okay.
yeah, I don't know a whole lot else beyond this. But yeah, they've definitely. I hope that there's some fun Easter eggs for the Pac-Man franchise. I will say, I think in Secret Level, the Pac-Man episode, he did get fruit shaped stuff, so that might be a hint about that kind of thing.
Is there going to be like a girl drone with like a
Oh
bow in
my
its hair?
god! Or just maybe
That's
you just find a girl like character in it,
maybe,
and then
maybe,
she has the puck with the bow on her hair.
maybe so.
I think they have the real license to be real weird with this game.
There's so many possibilities for them to explore.
I don't know if it's a
Yeah,
good Metroidvania though. Like I will
I
play the
don't
crap
know.
out of this, and I will be very excited to do so. I'm very intrigued by this game, but I also acknowledge that there is a wide spectrum of quality levels that this game could have when it comes out, and I'm hopeful that it's going to be really good. I am all for developers taking big swings with games, especially now when a lot of them are playing it so safe. But that is coming out July 18th, so that'll be a fun summer release for us to look forward to. A few other quick hit ones after that. Patapon 1 and 2 Replay. So rhythm based games that came out in 2007 and 2008. This collection adds new features like difficulty settings and, just kind of overall remastering. That is coming out July 11th. I don't know if you ever played the Patapon games,
Those are
but
those are good games. I mean, like just straight up, that's a fun. I wouldn't say I would have been expecting it today, but no objections from me whatsoever. There, I think those are fun returns. It falls in that space where it's like it's not like ancient, like we were talking about Pac-Man, right? Like that's a very venerable franchise. Patapon, falls in a space where I think there's a decent number of modern players who just might never have encountered it. So
mhm.
I think that'll be cool.
Yeah, so that comes out July 11th, Patapon 1 and 2 Replay. Next up was a bit of a weird one for me. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar. This is a farming sim game that is a remaster of a 2010 DS game, which I'm not familiar with. So I looked it up, and it's kind of weird because this game didn't exactly light the world on fire when it came out on DS. It only had a 68 on Metacritic. So hopefully they're fixing some of the problems. I didn't really look too much into what the problems were, but this is a remaster. It's a chance to do a little bit right by it.
My guess is that that was that was probably a business decision, uh, examining the popularity of like the cozy thing, right? The cozy game genre, and saying we've got this thing, let's do something with it and see if we can give it another like uh, adrenaline shot of life. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean that genre has absolutely exploded in the time since this game came out 15 years ago. So I guess
Yeah.
it makes sense. We'll see if it finds better reception when it comes out, which it comes out August 27th. So this release calendar for Switch is finally filling out because
Sure.
it was kind of a deserted wasteland for a while there.
Yeah, I mean I think, as an aside, that's going to be a really interesting thing to examine a week from now, right?
Hmm.
Like, because Nintendo's going to be, in my guess is that Nintendo will be very consciously trying to make choices uh, that reflect an understanding of both one group of people who have a Switch and another group of people who will have a Switch 2, and like what decisions they're how they can cater to that transition moment. Anytime you have a new console kind of coming out, that's a challenge. So getting a picture of the calendar for both consoles will be really interesting.
Oh, definitely. Especially, like you said, this time next week, we will know a lot about how
Here's hoping,
Nintendo is
right?
going to be. I mean, could you imagine if they do this direct of the Switch 2 and there's just like two games that they announce alongside like a demonstration? I don't think that is going to be the
No,
case. I
no.
think we're going to get a pretty massive list of games. They're going to come out swinging. There's that report, which we didn't cover, but like basically, there was a report that there's like a three-pronged approach where it's like the first few months are going to be heavily first party focused, then the next few months will be third party focused, and then the holiday season they're just going to bring out kind of the heavy hitters. And
Sure.
if that ends up being the case, then we could really get a lot of really big announcements next week. So keeping my
Yeah.
fingers crossed, and you'll be able to hear all about it on this very show next week. But next, speaking of heavy hitters, we got probably the flagship game of this direct, and that is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Matt, are you a Metroid Prime guy?
Oh yeah, yeah. Although to be fair, not for a while.
I mean,
But I guess which is to say, of course, nobody's been at it new, but I have not like returned to it a lot. I know there's some fans out there like they're coming back and replaying the whole series every year or whatever. I'm maybe not at that level of rabid fandom, but yeah, those are amazing games, and I've
especially
been
that first
eager.
one for me.
Yeah, for sure, and I've been just as eager as everybody else to see them uh, pull the curtain back a little bit more, which I felt like they did today. Like I thought they showed off some interesting stuff with it, and a little bit of a better understanding of the setting and some of the special abilities and stuff like that. Psychic abilities now, it kind
Yeah.
of made me laugh a little bit, but it seems cool. I like the like direct your shot thing was maybe the one that stuck with me as being especially uh, interesting. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
so we saw that the planet is called Vuros,
Mm.
and Samus gets, I guess they said teleported there, and she gets stranded, and she needs to survive and escape. She has to go around scanning stone figures and different relics to open up her paths, which very Metroidvania. Because I'm sure there's gonna be like, oh, I would love to scan this relic, but I got to go get this other ability, and then you have to traverse back and backtrack a little bit to get a new psychic ability or whatever. But yeah, so the psychic abilities that we saw, she can use it to like open a door. She can like manipulate like different mechanisms and objects in the environment. And then yeah, if she shoots a beam, I don't know if it has to be like a special type of beam, but she can fire a shot and then take direct control of it. And like they showed her like firing a shot and then like going around an obstacle or an enemy to hit another enemy. And yeah, it seems like a pretty cool game mechanic. I don't know if it's going to be kind of like game altering on the level of like Tears of the Kingdom's Ultra Hand or anything like that, but
That's a high bar.
they could have a very cool like set of puzzles and like encounters that use these mechanics. And I mean, I'm almost like salivating at the thought of like some of the boss battles that they could like build around this mechanic, because I mean, you have played through these games, you know that the boss battles are pretty involved and often have kind of creative solutions that you have to take to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that they've confirmed once again 2025. I was really crossing my fingers we would get a release date for this thing, but still nothing there. But you feeling good about this one? Are you gonna check this out when it comes out?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Not even not even a possibility I would miss it.
Yeah, well, we'll see if they say anything about like, oh, well, there's going to be a better performing version on Switch 2 or anything like that next week. But they did double down that this is coming to Switch 1. There was when they showed Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, there was a little in the upper corner, it just said Nintendo Switch. So, maybe we'll get that same trailer and say Nintendo Switch 2, and it'll be like 60 frames per second or something like that. But yeah, I'm very excited for this game, and I'm still utterly shocked we have not gotten 2 and 3 on Switch to allow people
Yeah.
to replay that beforehand.
Yeah.
But moving on, a few more kind of smaller games, but Disney. We got a Disney game here. Uh,
Yeah. A
Disney
weird one.
Villains Cursed Cafe. So and maybe this is kind of playing on that cozy style thing, but you work at a potion cafe and brew potions and elixirs for Disney villains, and it's just an all-star cast of Disney villains. We saw like Cruella de Vil, we saw Ursula, we saw Captain Hook, Gaston, and I don't. Did Gaston ever poison anybody? I feel
I
like that
don't.
was like a Maleficent, and
I don't
like
think so.
I don't think Captain Hook did either.
He did like the pub. I guess
Yeah,
would be the argument
he's
there.
just gonna come in and order beer. He's not gonna order anything like menacing.
Not as if Disney would ever approve it or anything like that. But the Disney villain. The Disney villain bar game I would play would be the version where it's like uh, these guys are getting drunk and hitting on each other. I think that would be really funny.
I thought you were
Uh,
gonna go a different route. I thought you were gonna say they were like getting drunk and like spilling all of like their secrets, and like you're a
yeah,
bartender, so they're just opening their heart to you.
that would be good too. Like you're like the bartender turned therapist for the villains. I would play that as well. Uh,
I mean, I would
be
I would not be surprised if Gaston hits on, I don't know who, like what attractive character or attractive villain that they might throw at them. But I mean, it showed like they might be interacting. So like, if anybody's gonna hit on a character in this game, it's Gaston.
yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see. That one looked weird to me,
So
but
yeah, you
you
brew
know,
these potions. Go ahead.
no, just as with all things, it all comes down to how it shakes out in the end. Something can look really weird at this stage and seem like an unusual concept, but if the gameplay comes together and it's funny or it clicks for some reason, then I'm all for it. That said, that one struck me as being a little. What? Where was the genesis of this one? Right? How did we get? Okay, we want to do a Disney villains game. What if they're going to drink potions at a store? Like that's a weird pitch to me, but
It is. I wonder what it's like, a chicken or the egg situation. It's like, did they come up with a Disney villains idea, or did they come up with like, hey, we're building this potion crafting game, and then they show it to Disney and like the games division over there, and they're like, oh, we actually love this. What if we gave you our villains to do that? I mean, I would love to get the behind the scenes story about this game.
yeah,
So the way that you brew the potions actually changes the storylines for these characters in the games. That's kind of a cool wrinkle there. And then as you develop, I guess, relationships or progress the stories, the characters, you can craft different potions for them. So you know what? You don't have to wait if you want to check this out, because it's available now. So there you go.
it's my evening then. I'm gonna go make some potions.
There were
I need to go, Brian. I gotta go and
You got to go brew some potions
brew some potions for
I don't
Cruella de Vil.
Yeah. So we have a couple of indie games on this direct that I think actually stole the show here. One is a game that I think we have been eagerly waiting for some information about, and that is Witchbrook.
Yeah, man.
It is a Stardew Valley style game about attending a wizardry school. So, I mean, it's not a Harry Potter game, but you can basically pitch it as like, what if Stardew Valley was a Harry Potter game? And that basically gets the point across. You're attending wizard school. There's social elements. There's jobs that you can take on to pay for tuition. You can learn spells. You can craft. There's 4-player online co-op. It has that pixelated art style that's kind of similar to Stardew Valley. It's not by the same developer. Don't get confused there, but it's a game that has a lot of promise, a lot of potential. How are you feeling about this one, Matt?
Yeah, I've been anticipating that one for a long time. It is, to be clear, I think we first did coverage of that game a long time ago. I think it even had a different name in the beginning, and now I'm spacing on what it was. But I mean, this thing has been floating around for a very, very long time, and we've been, trying to keep an eye on it. I think it looks very, very cool. We talked earlier in the show about like cozy games. It's a weirdly complicated genre to get right. Like you got to have it be, like hit those points of being nice and relaxing and leisurely and that kind of thing. But you can't have it be boring.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is very, very much, even with one like Witchbrook that looks cool and it's hard for me to imagine a more compelling setting concept, right? Like I really, really like. I think the magic school vibe, and I'm going to be a witch that is going through all that stuff. That's all super cool. A very, very smart angle. Um, but at the end of the day, like there's got to be some very clever gameplay. Stardew Valley isn't just like a phenomenon because it's like, oh, it just hit on something that nobody had done before. Lots of people had done it before, but they didn't do it that well, right? And so you really have to have um, a careful attention to nailing what makes those kind of games fun. But conceptually, I would say I'm very, very much on board with that one.
Yeah, it looks very cool, and it's, kind of nice to have another game that maybe scratches that Stardew Valley itch in a
Hmm.
different way while we wait for Concerned Ape to put out Haunted Chocolatier.
Another
Uh,
weird one. Yeah.
yeah, lots of games that I think are hitting on this very specific moment in games industry trends. And I don't think there's a more successful cozy game than Stardew Valley. So games that kind of follow along that formula were bound to crop up. But this one does look very promising and has looked very promising for quite a long time. And we finally got a release window. It is holiday 2025. So hopefully before the calendar turns over, we will have this one on our system of choice. But delays can happen. So, and
They can and do, but I'm with you. I'm hoping that we get to play it finally.
for sure. Next one, we had a hand-drawn platformer called The Eternal Life of Goldman. And I don't know if you got the same vibe. I kind of got like old school Disney movie aesthetic, like that animation style.
Well,
Um,
it also it like directly references DuckTales and
yes,
the jumpy the
the pogo
old
stick.
guy jumping with his cane kind of thing. So that feeds into that kind of homage quality to it. It has to be purposeful.
Hmm.
Uh, there was somebody on that development team that was like, oh, I love me some old school DuckTales video game action, and that's what they were chasing there, at least in part.
I mean, I
So
don't know what
that's
you're
cool.
talking about. That was actually Funky Kong that they were referencing.
Uh,
I think that was, what was it, Tropical Freeze? They gave Funky Kong like Funky mode in that, where Funky Kong
yeah,
had like kind of like the almost like a pogo style thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, that's absolutely a Scrooge McDuck reference there from the DuckTales video game. But it looks very pretty, and I'm excited to see how it plays. That's coming out holiday 2025 as well. We got a celebration of the 40th anniversary of the Gradius series, Gradius
Hmm.
Origins. It comes with Gradius, Gradius 2, Salamander, Life Force, Gradius 3, Salamander 2, and then an all new title in Salamander 3. Some of these games have multiple regional versions to check out if you want to. Those games are all very fun, and it's cool that there's a new one coming in this package. So that's coming out
Hmm.
August 7th. Rift of the Necrodancer was next up. That is a rhythm-based game from the series of Crypt of the Necrodancer and also Cadence of Hyrule. So it's like the next one in that series. You battle enemies in this one using kind of like a Guitar Hero style note highway, and I've got to check this out at PAX West, I think 2 years ago now.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it plays pretty well. It's cool, like there's different enemies that come down. It's like a 3-lane highway on the notes, so it's not just like you're hitting the notes and like that plays it. You attack the enemies as they cross your threshold, and some of them will just get destroyed immediately. Other ones they'll get pushed back a couple notes, so like you have to hit them again when they come down, and it's all in rhythm. And then other ones you hit them and then they immediately jump to like the right or the left depending on their
Mm,
color. So you have to be really cognizant of like how the enemies are coming at you and what enemies they are, what abilities each one has. So once you start memorizing it, at first I was like, I have no idea what's happening. I'm getting pretty frustrated here. And then eventually it did start clicking with me. It's like, okay, well, this slime, when I hit him, he's going to jump over 2 lanes to the left. And that's going to really be something I have to keep an eye out. So I had a great time with this when I checked it out at PAX West a few years ago or a couple years ago. They also announced that there are leaderboards, remixes of these songs that you can play. And I think the big announcement here was that there is a Celeste music DLC pack that is coming out with even more crossover DLC planned. I think they showed the Pizza Tower guy, so you can probably bet that that soundtrack will be one of them, which has fantastic music, as does Celeste. So that's really cool. I love this crossover content, especially when like music games. Uh, the other big surprise of this, it's available now. So if you want to check that out, you can go on to your eShop and play that. Um, Matt, we have a very interesting one here. Tamagotchi Plaza. Not to be confused with another game that was announced later on that sounds very similar. Um, a life sim where you can take part in various mini games, help shops in the town. They showed like building eyeglasses for people in the village, cleaning their teeth, even cooking and plating food. And as you build up this town, like more people come and you can unlock like different things that you can do in the town. Looks like kind of a cozy mini game focused title that is coming June 27th. uh, Another one of the tentpole games of this direct was next, and that is Pokemon Legends ZA. So we got new footage showing off the battles and exploration. And just to recap, the game takes place in Lumio City, which was in Pokemon X and Y. And the story is that a company that surely isn't evil or dastardly, called Quasartico Inc., is doing an urban redevelopment plan so that Pokemon and people can better coexist within the city limits. And so to do this, they set up wild zones all over the city so that wild Pokemon can just like live in peace. So as I pointed out when we had Pokemon Day, naturally your job is to go in there and disturb them and capture them with your Pokeballs.
Like you do.
Yes. So there's also Pokemon that exist outside of the wild zones, and you can explore the city and even go up on rooftops to try to find them. So there is some verticality, a lot of exploration and everything. And the thing that they really announced this time, like the big story, is it's peaceful during the day. The city is go around catching Pokemon, and then when nightfall happens, basically all the trainers come out and participate in a battle tournament, and it's called the ZA Royale. And these different zones pop up where if you walk into them, a trainer will attack you with this Pokemon, and you have to try to kind of battle your way up the ranks. And if they spot you, they will attack you, and you can also ambush them and like try to get an attack before they really enter battle. So that'll give you the advantage. And battles in this are more real-time oriented than other Pokemon games, so you have to like time your attacks. It's not just straight turn-based. And then you actually this, I guess, explains the name. You start at rank Z and you work your way up to rank A, and as you get higher in ranks, you unlock different things that you can do. And they say that once you reach the top, you can have a wish granted, which very very sweet there, and very very basic reward. When you're trying to craft a story, I guess you can have a wish granted.
I often feel that of all the video game worlds, living in a Pokemon world would be really, really strange.
I used to like when I was a kid, I was like, man, it
Yeah.
would be so cool if Pokemon were real. I wouldn't have to go to school. I could just like walk across the country and catch
Uh,
Pokemon and like meet friends and like develop relationships with these creatures that like fight
yeah, man.
alongside me. And then like I get into the Viridian Forest and I see my first bee drill, which is like a human-sized bee with like multiple stingers, and I'm just like, never mind. I don't want
Yeah,
this
no,
anymore.
it would be way more terrifying than the games make it out to be if it was anything close to the way it is presented. Like if I see like a groundhog in my backyard, I'm like, I'm concerned about that. That looks dangerous. Can you imagine? Can you even imagine, Brian? You just want going through your day, and then like
A
all
Charizard.
yeah, just these weird, crazy creatures that can like spout lightning and flame, are just like part of your daily life. It would be nerve wracking and terrifying all the time. So
Especially when you
that's my my non. I'm not a big Pokemon guy, as I think you know. That's my takeaway on this new Pokemon game. I think that city sounds terrifying. Uh,
well, I
I don't
mean,
want to live there.
if you go on GameInformer.com and search like I think it's like scariest Pokédex entries, there are
Yeah,
Pokemon who
yeah,
will literally kill humans.
yeah.
So and
No,
like they will. There's one that like it will like I think it's Frostlass
hmm.
or Frolas who will seek out humans who are hiking through mountains, and freeze them, and then take it back to its lair and put them up on the wall as trophies.
Wow, that sounds bad.
Yeah,
I
and
don't want
then
to. I don't want to live there.
Drifloon, it looks like a balloon, and so
Mm.
it will act like a balloon, and children will walk up and grab the strings, and then it pulls them up, and it just says it pulls them to the afterlife is what it says.
Wow.
And then there's what is the other one where it's like, if you feel a cold shiver while you're walking in the nighttime or something, do not try to resist. It is already too late or something. It's like, God, they really get dark with some of these. But let's move on to Rhythm Heaven. So Rhythm Heaven Groove. I've been actually saying I want a Rhythm Heaven game. Oh, by the way, Pokemon Legends ZA, they reconfirmed late 2025.
Sure.
Uh, this is the first entry in Rhythm Heaven since Megamix came out in 2015, but that was a greatest hits compilation. So really, it's the first all new entry since 2011's Rhythm Heaven Fever on Wii.
Okay.
So, extremely simplistic controls, all rhythm-based mini games, fun art styles that vary from mini game to mini game. They showed one that it was a very strange trailer where it's just like, this is a very difficult mini game where you have to press A to jump through a hoop, and then it started adding like more elements and music and
Sure.
everything, and yeah.
And it was sort of like it when you have the music, it all clicks. I think that was the message it's trying to get across. And
Definitely, yeah,
it
yeah.
looked. I thought that looked cool. I want to play that game.
We have a ways to play this game though, like a ways that we
Yeah.
have to wait because it's coming out in 2026.
Yeah.
So that was one that I was excited for because I've been wanting a new Rhythm Heaven game for 10 years now, and now we're finally getting it next year. Next up was kind of a different announcement. We had two announcements in this that were not games. They were
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like, hey, Nintendo's trying something new here. This is called virtual game cards.
Mm-hmm.
And when you purchase a digital game now, uh, it's loaded into your system not as like just a tile. It's going to be a virtual game card, which can be loaded into or ejected from your system, similar to a physical game card that you would buy. And basically this is to address the fact that like, oh, if you go to the store today and buy like Tears of the Kingdom on on your Switch, you could take that out and give it to your friend, or you could take it out and give
Mm-hmm.
it to like your kid or whatever, and they can play that, and it's not a big deal to share that. This is a way that you can share games. So you can eject it from your Switch, and then you can load it into a second Switch, and it makes it easier to share games. That you will need an internet connection when loading or ejecting, it said. And then you can like freely load and arrange games between two switches. So like if you have two switches, like I think like Kyle said he has like a Switch Lite and then like a regular Switch that he keeps docked. You can lend your cards out to family members on your family plan using the local wireless connection. And but you can only lend one game at a time for 2 weeks at a time. So I'm assuming like, if I lend it to like somebody on my family plan, they can play it for those 2 weeks, and then it says it will automatically return to you after those 2 weeks. And I'm assuming you can then like be like, hey, you were still playing Zelda, I can lend this back to you for another 2 weeks. It's interesting because like I have long said that Nintendo needs to figure out a solution to like the way it approaches online like connectivity and like verifying ownership. Like when
Sure.
I fire up my Nintendo Switch online catalog and I want to play like Mario World on SNES, it always has to check like, oh, checking to see if this can be played. It's like, why doesn't my account just have a thing that says, yes, this is verified on this Switch and on this account through this date? And I don't know why, like I get on a plane sometimes and it's like, if I'm not connected to the internet, it's like, sorry, you need to connect online to validate that you own like access to this catalog. And it's
Sure.
infuriating. So I'm hoping that there's a way that they can circumvent that with this.
Hmm.
Um, so this isn't available quite yet, but it will come in late April as part of a system update. Any interest in this feature?
Well, whether I'm interested in it or not is it's coming. It's clearly like Nintendo's new approach to this stuff. I think I get it, right? Like in my mind, there's two core uh, reasonings. Like there was like a conversation in a boardroom somewhere, right? That we're trying to address two things. One of those is the continued rise in prominence of digital titles over physical. That there's just increasing. I for everybody, there's an increasing amount of the share of what's sold is digital, and this is a way to address the audience complaint that, like, well, I want to do that. I'd like to buy things digitally. It's easier for me. And of course, as an aside, it's also presumably less expensive for Nintendo, right? Like
Hmm.
to have it be that way. So desirable in that sense. But like, I don't want to buy digital if I'm this consumer because I want to be able to loan it to my buddy, that kind of thing. So this is an attempt to kind of address that. It's sort of a half measure, if we're being honest, right?
Hmm.
If I have my cartridge of Tears of the Kingdom and I give it to you, Brian, it's just a thing. You have it. You have it until you give it back to me. There's no weird system overseeing when I can get it. When you can give it back, all that kind of thing. So in this case, like, I think when Nintendo's still trying to like control the access to the thing that you have purchased, but it's better than not being able to do that, I guess. The other thing I think that it's meant to target is the Switch 2 is coming, right?
Hmm.
And there are lots of people already who, you referenced Kyle, has multiple Switches in his house. I'm sure there's lots of people like him, but there's about to be a lot more people who have a Switch and a Switch 2 in their house. And I would think that this functionality would help with that, right? Help to ease the complications of like owning, like I have a digital copy of this one game that I got on my Switch, and now I've got this other thing. My brother has a Switch too, and he's got his own like account or whatever. Like all those sorts of circumstances that relate to like now having another Nintendo console at home. This will make that just like a little bit more seamless. So that's, again, probably a good thing. Um, but it's a it also feels like not like it's like it's going halfway, right? Like it's putting limits on how you can do it and what you can do with it, right?
Sure. Yeah, and I mean that was kind of my thought as we were going through this presentation of like, oh yeah, that's good. It's a step in the right direction, but it's still not quite where I would like it to be.
Sure.
Um, so we got some rapid fire stuff here. We're just gonna churn right through this. High on Life, which came out I think a few years ago on other consoles, is coming to Switch on May 6th. Star Overdrive, which was a game that was I think started one of the directs in the past. It was like kind of uh, like snowboarding in like a desert game and like an action title. I don't know. It's coming April 10th, so we'll learn more about that game pretty soon. The Wandering Village comes out July 17th. King of Meat, which looks like kind of like an arena shooter, is 2025, and Lose Lagoon is coming in summer. And Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, is May 21st. So we're coming up kind of near the end of this Nintendo Direct. We got a few more here. Saga Frontier 2 Remastered. It's a Square RPG from 1999. It's a remastered version, so improved visuals. They also have you can team up with more allies. You can transfer stats to your party members, and there's a difficult post game that you can take part in. That is available right now. Monument Valley 1 and 2, Monument Valley 1 in particular, one of the greatest mobile games I think ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you're unfamiliar, it's isometric puzzles with beautiful art style and these landscapes that you traverse, and you can manipulate them and then solve perspective-based puzzles. This combo pack is coming out April 15th, and then they also announced Monument Valley 3 is coming this summer. So that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Excited to have those on my Switch. Then there's Everybody's Golf Hot Shots, which is funny because isn't there a Hot Shots golf franchise as well?
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting Everybody's Golf Hot Shots. It's anime style characters in a golfing game, very arcadey mechanics, single player challenge mode with different rivals you face off against. There's also a mode called Wacky Golf. There's obstacles that can there's like a tornado that like forms out of the hole if you get close enough, and then there's like obstacles that will fall and block you if you're like in the fairway or whatever. So some cool stuff there. There were like kind of like almost like Top Golf style, like, hey, there's like different targets throughout that you need to hit and like get different scores. So yeah, those types of games are always fun. There's local and online play. I like a good arcade sports game.
Totally.
That is coming out this year. Here's the one that I think that you might agree with me is probably the one I'm most excited about in this direct, and that is Marvel Cosmic Invasion.
Yeah, got a little a tribute game in there, right?
Yeah, so this is the same developer and publisher behind Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which I think is maybe the best side-scrolling beat 'em up of the past 10, 15 years.
It's really good.
It's fantastic, and we got a Marvel game coming now. So we saw Captain America, Venom, Wolverine, Storm, Nova, Spider-Man, and Phyla-Vell being playable characters in the trailer. And it has this unique mechanic where it's actually you select two characters, which is funny because like that's kind of the core conceit of the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise as well. So you select two characters and then you can swap between them on the fly, and it also offers 4-player co-op, either local or online. And they showed a variety of iconic enemies like Taskmaster you're facing off against, and there's locations like the Negative Zone and New York, obviously. Uh, I saw that Tee Lopes, the composer behind Sonic Mania and Shredder's Revenge, and also the composer behind the theme song of this very podcast, is doing the soundtrack for this. So very excited about that. That is coming out holiday 2025. I actually have told people that like this would be my dream project for that developer to do next, like a huge roster of both heroes and villains, lots of iconic locations, an excuse to visit all of them and have all these characters interacting, kind of like similar to like the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games. This basically seems like a side-scrolling beat-em-up version of Marvel Ultimate Alliance. So, that's very exciting. How are you feeling about this one?
I'm with you, man. This one looks rad. I wanna play it as soon as I can. I think it'll be fun to see. Traditionally with this kind of thing, they don't show all the characters right off the bat. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers. We get some more. Like that they kind of opt for the like, let's do a really big roster. I think that's that has proven recently with like Marvel Rivals, obviously totally different genre and style of game, but when you take that Marvel catalog of characters and you really embrace the idea of like there's a lot of different people and like it's weird that they all live together in the same universe sort of, and we're just going to go for it. It can work really well, right? Like that's there's something fun about that, and I'd like to see this game kind of do that. But even if it's not a billion more characters, it looks like it's just a fun time.
So I'm bringing up the verbiage here because they're going to do exactly that. Like, I mean, there's so many characters missing that like it would be absurd if this game came out and it didn't have like Iron Man or Hulk or Thor. But they did say, let's see, Dotemu revealed the first set of playable characters from the roster.
Sure.
So that's very promising right there.
Sure.
I hope they just go all out and like maybe like 20 or 30 characters playable at launch or something like that, and then DLC I would assume would be like a big part of this, the way it was for Shredder's Revenge. But they could probably go even further with this because as anybody who has ever cracked a comic book knows, like, or paid attention to movies over the past 20 years, Marvel has quite the roster of characters that they can pull from. So they could really just support this game for years and never run out of characters. I mean, the dumb phone game that I play, Marvel Strike Force, it's celebrating its 7th anniversary and it puts out basically a new character every single week. And they still have not run out of characters.
It is a almost bottomless barrel. It really is.
It is. So that is coming out later this year. I mean, this is the thing I'm most excited for of this direct. Of course,
more than Metroid.
I think so. Like, wow. I love Metroid Prime, and I think Metroid Prime 4 looks incredible. this is so incredibly my stuff. Like this is
Sure.
right in my wheelhouse. And because it's from like if this was just like a random studio that like I'd never heard of before,
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be one thing. But this is the company that gave us Shredder's Revenge, which completely, I was hoping, I was even hopeful that they would do like an X-Men revival, similar
Sure.
to, the old Konami game that followed up with the old TMNT arcade games. This is even better because we have X-Men, we have the Avengers, we have other cosmic characters. Where I mean, it seems like Annihilus is the big bad, so it's like you're going to have all these iconic characters that you can face off against and also control. And I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of team up mechanic similar to other games where it's like, all right, if you're Iron Man and Captain America, you can shoot his unibeam off of Cap's shield and like, take out like a sweeping group of people. Like, I mean, they haven't announced that yet, but I would imagine given like how that works in other games that might be something you can do. And that would be really cool if they can figure out a way to leverage that. So yeah, I am all in on this. The art style looks flawless for what I want from this game. The roster, I'm sure, is going to be massive, and it's going to have so many characters that I am just like, I've been crazy about for most of my life. So it's something I'm very much looking forward to. But yeah, so I mean, it's up there with Metroid Prime and Pokemon Legends ZA, and this final game that we're going to be talking about here in 1 second. Uh, I, but yeah, I think Marvel might be my Cosmic Invasion might be my most anticipated from this direct, honestly.
All right. All right.
But one that I think people are going to be very hit or miss on in terms of hype, but I am so hit on Tomodachi Life: Living the Dream. This is a game I have been wanting to come out in some form, whether it's this, which is a successor, or just an HD remaster of the 3DS game. So the 3DS game came out in 2014, and it's basically like it takes text to speech from your Mii's, but like it gives them all funny voices. It puts them in these weird situations. You can create like these weird things. Like I had an island where it was like, okay, my Mii is living on there. Uh, Reggie Fils-Aimé and Shigeru Miyamoto were roommates, and then like Guy Fieri and Shaquille O'Neal were roommates, and it was just such a weird thing. And your character like goes through this island and like interacts with these different. It's such a weird social simulation series, and we saw like one of my favorite features from the first Tomodachi Life revitalized in this game. Where it's like there's a dream sequence and just the weirdest stuff possible happens, and it's just like I don't even know how to like fully explain it, but you saw like one character running up to another while it was on a bench, and then when she gets real close, she's just a giant. And it's like that type of stuff is so like integral to the experience. It just like it's one of the thoroughly weird games that Nintendo has put out on the 3DS. I would almost say it's a top five, if not a top three 3DS game for me. That's how much I love Tomodachi Life on 3DS. So I am stoked that we are getting a new entry in this series. Have you
Yeah, it looks.
ever experienced this game?
I never played the original, but I get the appeal. I think it looks neat. Uh, it's fun to one of the things. I certainly don't need to tell you, or quite frankly, anybody listening here. But like one of the things that Nintendo has always done, and that they continue to do, that I think keeps people fans, is that from time to time they roll the dice on some weird stuff, right? And this is a weird one, but cool, right? Like because it embraces just like trying something unusual um, and letting it be what it is. I think that it could be kind of magical. We'll see.
Yeah, so it says create your own Mii characters because I realize I did a very bad job of explaining what this game is. Create your own Mii characters based on yourself, friends, family, anyone, and watch them live their lives on an island out at sea. Get involved with their relationships and experience all the weird and wonderful ways these Mii characters interact. You may even drop in on their dreams. So yeah, coming 2026. So we have
Okay.
a little bit of a wait for that, but still, I think this is one that a lot of people should have on their radars, especially if you like games like Animal Crossing. Like it's not quite the same, but it is in that same style of like there's some weirdness, you're making friends, you're doing different like kind of normally would be considered mundane activities, but it all builds towards something that's extremely fun and very weird in a lot of ways. So that was the final game that they talked about on the Nintendo Direct. The final thing that they talked about, they brought our dear friend Shigeru Miyamoto out, and we know when he's holding a phone that there's going to be something off the beaten path that he's going to be talking about. In the past, it's been something like Super Mario Run. This is a new app called Nintendo Today, and it is a smart device app that has a daily calendar with different Nintendo events. And they said that once they do the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct next week, they will start delivering news on the app as well. So it's almost like a persistent mobile Nintendo Direct was kind of the way they framed this. Like, oh yeah, Nintendo Direct, we've delivered the news directly to you.
Sure.
And then they're like, this is a continuation of that concept of like, you can just open this app at any time and there'll be the latest news once the Switch 2 Direct happens next week. And it's free for anyone with a Nintendo account, but you can download the app right now and experience the basic functionality before it goes full like news next week. Um, I mean, do you see yourself using this app at all, Matt?
Um, I would see myself using it from a professional capacity. I think if I was not doing what I'm doing, it probably wouldn't totally click for me, just personally. But I get the impetus here for doing something like this. I think everybody working in games and facing some of the challenges we talked about earlier in the episode, um, there is a desire to like, how can we connect with our potential audience directly and communicate to them like without a filter, right? Even folks that do what we do, we are we're interpreting and talking about the content, right? And I think companies want that too, but they also want to have a way to just talk directly to their potential consumers. This is another attempt of many that Nintendo has to do that and to do it in a direct way. Like it in some ways it strikes me as very very similar to the primacy that they give when you turn on your Switch to like their little news tab thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how eager they try to they try to push that in front of you, and make you look at some articles that they're not by journalists really. They're not by like people who are filtering the news. It's like this is news directly from or a piece of entertainment that's about one of our games, whatever. It's directly from Nintendo. I would guess that this stuff, this app thing, would just be almost kind of like another delivery method for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So good on them. I think that seems totally reasonable. Um, I don't know. I don't know. The We'll have to see how people would use it. If there really are a lot of people that would be that eager to be like, I want another app on my phone to be specifically about that stuff.
Mm.
But I don't think it harms anything. Great, like it seems totally like a reasonable path for Nintendo to pursue to try to just, like I said, have another way to connect.
Sure, and it already is breaking news, maybe inadvertently, because there is a Nintendo Switch 2 render on the app, and Wario64 posted that it is labeled the extra button that has been very mysterious to this point on the Switch 2 right Joy-Con is labeled as the C button now in that render. So small little piece of news there. But Matt, overall, how would you grade this Nintendo Direct?
Oh gosh, I mean, there are a couple of big things in there. I felt I was struck as I was watching it this morning by like there were definitely things where it's like this feels very very below the radar things sitting beside some things that were like really big, right? Like having some Metroid that kind of thing sprinkled in, Witchbrook, the Marvel game, like those are some kind of like big things. And there were some of those other ones that quite frankly kind of unmemorable. Um, but I also am conscious that the decision to do this week is that like they had things that they needed to find an avenue to communicate about that were not appropriate for stealing the thunder from what's going to be happening for them next week. So personally, I mean, I guess I'd maybe give it a like a B minus kind of a space, something like that. But I will add a little asterisk on there to say I think it's unfair for us to judge it too harshly because it's sort of meant to be in pairing with what we're going to have next week,
This is the
right? Like
appetizer.
it's both it's an appetizer, but it's also like this stuff needed to be communicated. We needed to get some of this stuff out here. We want next week to be about our new console and news about the new console and all that kind of thing. And this was a way to do that without muddying the message or making something next week have to be too long. So I get it.
And
Like
keep it
that
squarely
makes
focused on Switch 2 next week.
totally. Like that's what they want. They know that that's really where they're going to get some big attention, even from more mainstream coverage places. So, like I said, my grading comes to. I think a more comprehensive grade for the student will come at the end of the next week.
Yes.
And how the two things fit together. If that makes any sense.
I'm going to go with a C plus personally on this. Like
Yeah.
I said, like there's some things I'm extremely excited for, but there were a lot of things like, oh, okay, maybe I'll check that out. But like, you know, other ones that I'm like, I'm definitely not going to check that out.
Yeah.
I think for like being this late in the console life cycle, a C plus is perfectly acceptable, if not actually pretty good.
Sure.
I think that if we get to next week and the Switch 2 has a C plus direct, I think then we have like, you know, reason to worry. I don't think that's going to be the case though. I think that what we're going to get next week is going to make us forget about any kind of underwhelmed feelings that we may or may not have from this direct. I mean, this is part one of a 2-part series, as you mentioned. So I'm very much looking forward to next week. But speaking of next week, Matt, before we sign off here, do you have any predictions for the Switch 2 Direct next week?
Oh gosh.
Either price, either release date, launch title, anything like that.
I don't know. I would bet maybe release date might be sooner than we would expect. Would maybe be the first thing. I don't think it's going to be something that they would be at this space for, and then it's like, you know, coming at the end of 2026 kind of stuff, right? Like it's coming soon.
Well, we already know that based on Best Buy, their website, it does say coming 2025.
Yeah.
And it does say pre-orders start April 2nd. So we know that like it's at least within pre-ordering distance.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold steady with my prediction that I've been giving this whole time. I'm going to say June 20th, and it's going to be $400.
Okay.
That's my final prediction as we head into the Switch
actually getting an answer
reveal
maybe?
week. Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if they didn't give us especially if they're going to start pre-orders on April 2nd.
They gotta have a certain level of detail there, right?
So. Exactly. But Matt, thank you so much for joining me for this episode, talking about Game Informer, recounting the news out of the Nintendo Direct. I know it was a busy week for all of us, so I really appreciate you carving out some time for us.
Yeah, you got it. No problem.
And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As you know, my Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in, but you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or find me on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. That is also my YouTube channel name, and if you would hit subscribe on that channel, it would help me out a lot. Matt, I know you're not the biggest social media guy, but what would you like to plug on the way out?
Gosh, I mean, this week, yeah, this week it's all about for most of us is about, you know, Game Informer. Come if you haven't had a chance yet, come see what we're trying to do, what we're trying to get relaunched over there. We would really appreciate the support. So it's as easy as that.
And 26 reviews launched alongside the website, covering a lot of the games that came out while we were on hiatus, we'll say. So be sure to go check that out alongside some other really cool features. We got an exclusive interview with Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann. We've got a top 11 video game resurrections, which is a little bit of a cute list that we put together there, and along with some other stuff that you can check out over on GameInformer.com. But that is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Before we wrap up this episode of All Things Nintendo, I just want to give a special shout out to the $10 patrons to the show. Abdullah, Adam Scott, Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Chaps My Ass, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jackal, Jason Thompson, Jawar Hello, Jill Grote, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, Cody Gibson, Creeper207, Mad Genie Confused Koala, Megan S., Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichart, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Tux DC, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your support, and thank you for continuing to listen to the show.